Miss Kelin,
What's up, Joe?
how are we?
I'm good. How are you?
Not saying anything.
Not good.
Not saying anything.
Aw.
You feeling good though? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I can't complain. Kind of tired, but, it's par for the course, so not too bad.
all right. So 2 topics. Let's get it hammered out. So I went down a rabbit hole these last couple days, and I like conspiracy theories, right?
No.
I do. I
Do
like
you?
them. Do you know why? Like, let's talk about the conspiracy theory of conspiracy theories.
Oh,
okay?
gosh. Okay.
Okay. So, it's a little bit. I don't know. Like it minimizes people and their intellect when you find out that they buy into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You kind of get painted as a crazy person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see, well, I don't care about being painted as a crazy person because I'm a self-described
You
crazy person.
own it.
I do. But I think it's really important for society to be able to be a cynic about pretty much anything. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything so sacred that you can't take a stab at it and say, if the probability is above 0, right, you can dig and find out if it's a potential.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And I know the people that are in power really don't want you to, right? They don't want
Yeah.
you digging through that mess and whatever. So it's a helpful strategy if you demonize people and make them sound crazy if they're digging in a spot where even if they find something, they're just crazy people.
Yeah. You're
Right?
like, don't look over here.
Yeah. So I want to normalize a little bit more of that rabbit holing. Now there's some people who go to the nth degree and they literally are crazy and they want to find something. They're not objectively trying to find truth.
Yeah.
They want aliens, they want Bigfoot so bad. Flat
They'll
Earth, the whole
create
thing.
it, sort
Oh
of.
yeah, they
Yeah.
will gloss over. See, our brains are cool this way that we are wired a certain way that when we have a belief, like our brain is really good at being super observant to things that support what we believe in and really blind to things that might poke holes in what we believe in.
Yeah.
And you got to think like the way the learning experiences with people is you have neurons that arrange themselves depending on how you learn things, how you process information. So if early on in development you learn something one way, right? And then all of a sudden later in life, you have to go back and change the wiring on something that was a belief early on. Well, think of how many predicate neurons and predicated pathways already exist and how much comes unglued when you do that. So the brain's like, I got to preserve this, even if it's wrong, because there's so many other things that are attached to that method of thinking.
So it's not just stubbornness. It's not just
our brain
wanting to be
working
right.
Yeah.
It's like I put a lot of physical effort into learning that, and to unlearn it is going to be a
mess
task.
up a whole lot of other pathways that
I
help
never
you that have
looked at it that way.
that have useful useful application on it. So I'm like I said, I flat Earth. The recent one was I have no idea how this came up on my YouTube feed, but Alex Jones had a presentation on controlling hurricanes with lasers and whatever.
I was
right?
wondering if that's where you were going with this.
yeah.
I'm like the hurricanes.
Yeah,
the
yeah. So
storms.
I went full Alex Jones, and even by saying that, elicits a response in anybody who's listening to this that Alex Jones can be a loon bat at times, right? And so he might say one thing that's total lunacy, and 10 things that are absolutely accurate, and we're going to take the whole pile of what he said and we're going to push it in a big hole.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If
And-
there's
and they're-
one that's off, then they're all
That's
messed
exactly
up.
right.
Yeah.
So the dude has been right about a lot of stuff. There's some threads of truth as he's going down his rabbit holes to represent it to us, that there's been some legitimacy to some of his accusations. Now, I think the frogs being gay did a disservice to the total messaging of it. We're turning frogs gay. Did you remember
Okay,
that one?
I was going to say I don't know who this person is, and I've not heard of that.
Okay.
Frogs are gay? Or
They're
we're
turning frogs gay. They're turning frogs gay. So I think, and I didn't hear that whole one. It's just a sort of like its
Okay.
own meme kind of thing. And it's, but during that rabbit hole, you can almost reverse engineer it and find that, okay, well, we're adding chemicals to our foods and we're adding chemicals to things we breathe. And you got all these, estrogen in everything that we eat. Mm-hmm. And we're feminizing people, is men in particular, And so you arrive at the frogs is gay. Probably not the best illustration of feminizing things, turning frogs gay, because it's a very,
It's kind of loosely connected.
yeah, but it undermines the method of presentation. But anyway,
Yeah.
controlling hurricanes. All right.
Yeah.
So if you said that, you would say like, okay, well, objectively, let's just say devil's advocate and say, could they control hurricanes? Can they mess with weather? Can they weaponize things that are naturally occurring? Can you take a little bit of control? So let's delve. Let's delve into it a little bit.
Yeah.
And let's just say, so number one, follow the pattern of if you have motive, you have opportunity, right? Let's hit those two first. Motive and opportunity. Are there people who want there to be bad hurricanes? Really top?
I would say, yeah. I mean, especially going into a political year and people wanting to sort of make something of it or paint themselves in a certain light for votes. I mean, I could see someone.
So the environmentalists have been saying that global warming will make really bad storms. Mm-hmm. And then you have naturally occurring a very quiet period in storms happening. And all of a sudden we're like, hey, we got to drum up some storms here. We're going to look foolish. And then we're going to take all this money out of environmentalism and all the power and control that comes with that.
Yeah.
So let's drum up a couple of storms. So that would be a motive. That would be have an interest in having it.
Yeah.
Now, what about our enemies? If China or somebody who they can't throw a missile at us because they're going to get destroyed, if they can conjure up a storm and sucker punch us with some weather, would they do it? Would they have a motive to hit us with weather?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Oh, man.
Okay. Opportunity. So
Yeah.
looking into the sciences of being able, like there's been, I don't know, since the 50s, they've been playing with bringing more precipitation to deserts, where people have no water or, village, whatever. In Vietnam, this is an Alex Jones special, by the way. In Vietnam, you know the movies depict that it always seems to rain during the soldiers going through Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, there were some infrastructure that they couldn't get to with bombs. So the theory is that they made weather happen to wash out bridges and take infrastructure out of the way. So they made it rain there for the entire war as a strategical advantage with military.
You think we would have had those capabilities back then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not hard. Like, weather is not terribly difficult to control, right?
Okay,
and
yeah.
as our technology advances, then it gets easier and easier to have, and let's just say if I were in that plane, right?
Yeah.
And I threw some of the components or chemicals into the clouds that make, that seed precipitation. Mm-hmm. Could I do it, and could I do it effectively? Could I guide a storm to a certain area? So the best way to prove this is to do it on purpose. Say, here's in the middle of the ocean. We're going to go to this one little cloud. We're going to seed it. We're making it into something bigger. We're going to spin it into a circle and show that we have control of the cloud. Super easy to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we spend science dollars on crazy stuff all the time. Making a cloud jump through hoops would not be off the table.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if you've got a big, disastrous hurricane that's coming towards Florida, if you've got the technology, why would you not divert it into an area that's not Florida and send it off into the ocean, right? It would be, and people would be on board, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
totally with defending ourselves
Sure, absolutely.
from a storm. So I'm not in the camp that this was kind of manufactured by anybody, where it could be. That's still a potential and possibility. Could it be a weaponized hurricane? I think our scientists are somewhat smarter than others, and if some plane or whatever came into our airspace and was doing something with the clouds, okay. And I don't have a good motive for the science community creating something so devastating that if they were ever found out that they lobbed a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico that could have extinguished people, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
So either they know that they'll never be found out, right? Or this wasn't anything that was done on purpose.
So I've seen some information about, I think it was a meteorologist somewhere, somebody was talking about these storms being caused because of the temperature of the water. Like super hot water that is in these big hurricanes. I mean, I guess you've talked about sort of messing with the clouds. Is that something we could also control? Is the water temperature in certain areas?
I don't think by that much. This time of year, that's when the Gulf of Mexico is at its peak, and hurricanes need a lot of energy taken by the moisture and the heat from the water. So this is just like prime time. That's the hotbed of when hurricanes form, is when these conditions, exist. So could you like heat up the Gulf of Mexico? No, probably not. If you intended to, like, think about all the energy that you have to create to do something like that.
Yeah.
Could you cool it off? Can you drag a couple of glaciers down from, the north and cool it down? Maybe. But anyway, so the thing is, like, when we're speaking about this intelligently, then we could say, if there's a potential and possibility, we could dig through there and find out some truth on it, and not make it a political thing where there's a villain somewhere. We can use these sciences to protect ourselves and have more control over naturally occurring events. If we can strike down a tornado when it's in the middle of nearing a town, that science and technology should exist.
Yeah, so if we know that one is about to be formed, or conditions are right to form a tornado, a hurricane, or something catastrophic, then could we not kind of throw a wrench in the works and break it up?
Yeah, right.
How do we not have this?
And that's the thing. Like, I play this game with all things political. People that are in power that could do something like this. You and I sit around and think, well, they should be doing this. Is stuff that they should be hatching up.
Yeah.
If you've ever talked to politicians about things that have ultra specialization, they're not that smart. They really aren't. And it's not really their job to be smart in those ways, so they don't push on those things. So if I had 20 things that I could take on, things that put money in my pocket and things that really don't, right?
Yeah.
Which would I pick? I picked the money pocket once, right?
Yeah.
So until the money part of it is gone, you're not going to have unintelligent people working on something just to save lives.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm going to work on my own prosperity.
Are you going to focus on business and making of money and things of that nature, or let's start thinking about how we could potentially throw off storms?
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's why I say, like, I play this game in politics when, is it nefarious where someone really has everybody else's interest, at the bottom of the barrel? Or is it ineptitude where they're just not smart enough to do important things? And when you look at the lot of candidates that get thrown at us, I go with ineptitude more than nefariousness any time. And I think the default is when you get a bunch of inept people who are just looking out for their own prosperity, the byproduct of that is what we have here. It's just like everybody looks around like, was I supposed to be doing something? You were doing something?
Yeah.
And then things that could exist don't end up existing because of that idiocy.
What about inept people that are just sort of the figureheads and controlled by the nefarious?
Do you think those nefarious people really exist? Do you think they really have it out?
I kind of do.
You do?
Let's
name them. Let's
I don't know who they are.
But paint the picture of their profile of what reason would they have? Like
Greed.
Access to, what?
Greed.
Yeah. I'm not putting that as nefarious, though.
No.
Serving self-interest is just a human quality where you're going to go after making more for yourself. And nefarious would be purposely trying to hurt something or someone. That would be nefarious to me.
But you don't think they would purposely try to hurt something or someone because
pursuit?
of what they could gain from it? Or the greed involved in it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a byproduct, but I don't think that's their primary motive. I think they're a little deadened inside that if they cause harm to other people in the pursuit of that thing, I can see that as having tendencies, but it's not direct tendency. There's not an enemy that wants to strike at you and hurt you in particular. I think you're an unnamed person in a number. You get hurt, and it was just a casualty they're willing to tolerate.
Like, oops.
Yeah, didn't do it on purpose. They didn't single you out as a person that's going to be hurt. If I sold, cigarettes, right? I'm selling cigarettes because there's people want to buy it and I make money doing it. If you tell me, hey, I smoked your cigarettes and I got cancer, you're like, you had a choice, right? You could have not done that.
You didn't have to do it.
And if you had a chance to sell cigarettes and make it mandatory that everybody smoke at least one cigarette per day, right? You're not directly connecting that with you're trying to give someone cancer. You're trying to sell more cigarettes and make more money. That casualty over there, you know what I mean? It's just part of that. So would you call the cigarette companies nefarious if the end result is somebody gets cancer because of your product? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's probably more like that than someone's like, "Ooh, we love cancer. Let's give everybody," except for pharmaceuticals and hospitals who their prosperity is guaranteed the sicker you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this sounds a little paranoid, but how can you trust an organization that thrives only when you are sick or injured or dying?
Yeah.
And you go there to stay well.
Yeah, I'm not a good customer of that whole industry, right?
Yeah.
I don't take pharmaceuticals. I don't go really to see a doctor unless I absolutely have to. And so when you look at, the ledger on Joe, like, I don't make them very much money, right?
Yeah.
So converting me into it, make me sicker, give me bad food, air quality being terrible, like all of that stuff matters. Like, hopefully I can get into their system and start paying some of their bills.
Remain dependent on something.
Exactly.
I just recently saw a video. I don't know who she was. She claimed to be a doctor. I think she was speaking before the Senate or something. And she said, as a doctor in med school, she never once was required to take a nutrition course.
Of course.
And I'm like, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. I wonder, I don't know if anything has changed or if it's just the school or what, but it would be interesting to ask a bunch of doctors and medical professionals, did you ever have to take just a nutrition course or exercise course, or like literally anything about natural remedies? That would be interesting.
Okay, so it's a good point. We assume, right, that good decisions are going to come out of a system. But remember we were talking about the pressures the last show, about if you don't have a pressure that defends against certain things, then it'll inevitably will never get to that point.
Yeah.
So if major success, we'll change gears and do a different industry. If major success comes from telling bad news stories, right? More people tune in when you have bad news stories.
Bad news sells.
If there's nothing that stops you from just doing all bad news stories, you never will. There's not a pressure there. And if the good pressure is you get rewarded when you tell bad news stories, it's inevitable that you're going to tell all bad news stories, saying stuff that gets people to pay attention. So in hospitals, in medical, in pharmaceutical, what is the pressure, right, that makes a hospital want you healthy? What's the pressure? Nothing. They make all of their money if you're not.
They're like, why would we want to cure this?
Even and it's not nefarious,
Yeah.
right? You're just a bad customer if you're healthy. So you have choice. Go be healthy. All the information's out there, right?
Yeah.
Or don't and come with us. We'll be your customers. There's not like there's an oath that you take that says I'm supporting health, right?
Yeah.
Their oath is do no harm and treat diseases reactionary. After you're already sick, you come and see me.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Like the prospect of getting Trump, Musk, and RFK to eyeball these, and they are gunning. Like they're not hiding it. They are gunning for the institutions that are not doing smart things and are so corrupted in this same thing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
They're seeking prosperity. There's elements that are predicated on other elements, insurance companies and providers and brokers and physicians all the way down. All of them make more money by doing status quo. There's no incentive for them to do anything other than status quo. It gets so corrupted to the point where you are an anomaly if you go to the doctor, you're not sick, and say, hey, I'm at a baseline right now. Tell me where I'm at, and I want to even get healthier. They'd look at you like you were freaking crazy because everything around you, every tool, every instrument, every process is not to deal with people who want to get healthier. It is there that when you're sick to mitigate that disease, illness, or sickness.
Yeah, and I think, too, even to the point of sort of looking like a crazy person at times when you question things, have you ever had someone around you almost... what's the word? Almost like put you down or make fun of the fact that you're doing something healthy. Like if you're like, oh, I don't eat that, or oh, I don't do that, or whatever. Then they're like, oh, Mr. Healthy, oh, blah, blah, blah. And you're almost like shunned or put in this category of this weirdo who's trying to be ultra healthy and what's wrong with you, and you're paranoid about something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when really it's like, there have been thousands of studies that show that that's very unhealthy, so I don't want to do it, but I'm the weirdo. Yep.
I did a whole radio program on pharma, and you would not believe how many people got defensive about the drugs that they take.
Oh, yeah.
It's because as humans, we justify bad behaviors, things we already know in our head, but we build up this defense about how that thing's necessary and it's not really my choice and I'm a victim of it. And it's almost like a religion of drugs. And the people who supply it have some responsibility, but the people who defend it have even more responsibility. If I make you feel bad because you're pursuing health and make you out to be the weirdo, right?
Yep.
Then that is civilization dies based on that premise.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, I see people all the time. I know someone personally that's been doing the weight loss injections and things like that, and their health was terrible to begin with, and it's not any better. They're just smaller. And I even asked, I said, did your doctor, before prescribing this, in any way talk about diet, exercise, other means of losing weight? And she's like, basically, they know. I'm too old. I'm too far gone. I'm too whatever. It's not going to work. I'm not going to do that. And we need something that's going to work. And this works. And it's like, yeah. And if you try to push that, you're the bad guy. You're the one that they don't want to listen to anymore. And same with food. Well, I've eaten this my whole life. I ate this as a kid and I'm just fine. I did this as a kid and I'm just fine. And it's like, it's not even the same thing. Products that we have used for years and years and years aren't even made of the same ingredients anymore. Yep. And just because we did it years ago doesn't make it good or healthy or fine. But you're the weirdo if you try to talk any sense like that into someone.
I'm going to sort of take human beings and separate them into two things. So you got sophisticated thinking, macro thinkers, and you got really simpletons, like really simple people, right? And so like what we're talking about right now is a sophisticated set of decision making, a decision tree that says you take responsibility for your own actions. You don't have to do anything, even if it's an inconvenience. There's nobody who ultimately, has control over you. And then the simple people are like, everything's everybody else's fault. I'm just a spectator in this, and how dare you, look at me, look at yourself first, and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's almost 50%, and I hope it's only 50%. 50% of the people will never in a million years make decisions that are best for them without reasons. They are too far gone because they're not even open to hear criticism about their own decision-making, inability.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They recognize that they're too far gone, AKA, I have no reason to push myself to change. I just don't want to. I'm not going to. So I'm going to not even listen to anything that would require change. I'm only going to seek out what suits me.
Structurally, though, if we are just giving people what they're asking for, 50% of the people will be victims of just what's being given. The food that's in your grocery stores, the television that's on TV, the music you listen to, the people that you hang out with. Those decisions are either raise your stock value and they're good decisions, or they lower your stock value and they're bad decisions. So and this is a libertarian, so this just against my grain, right? The controls that we need to put in place to deliver good decisions to people against their will has to be immense to save 50% of those people.
Yeah.
Or else they'll just be left to their own vices and they will suffer and they'll be victims of the circumstance that we give them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's probably what, people like you mentioned, RFK and all of them are trying to change is, yes, could we dive deep into ingredients and dive deep when we're in stores and things to try to save ourselves and eat what we know is probably better choices than others. But yeah, I would love someone to be like, hey, let's control the poisoning. Let's control what they're making so that we don't even have the deception. You know what I mean? Like, I saw a video earlier today and it said, if there is a health food section in the grocery store, what is the rest of the store? It's like, oh crap! Like,
poison.
Who's controlling that?
Freaking poison.
Yes. Who's gonna make that poison go away?
And if you look at all the restaurants that they set up there in Boardman over here, we had probably 4 restaurants that served stuff that was healthy, and about 100 restaurants that is just crap, right? The health restaurants go out of business.
Yeah.
They don't survive. They
Yeah.
don't have good margins anymore. It's expensive. People don't like because it's free of the sugars that everybody's addicted to.
Yeah.
And so the good decisions don't have a hope unless we appeal to the other 50% of people who do take responsibility. All they need is information. They have self-control. They, can take the guidance of people who are smarter than them. And then we don't have to control. I mean, if the 50% of the bottom people, if they're properly informed and they're given adequate decisions or adequate choices and they make their own decisions, then you don't have to really control them. You kind of just let nature take its course on those, bottom 50%. So the prospect of RFK, Trump, and Elon Musk, I consider all 3 of those people to be sophisticated thinkers. Trump, not as much as the other 2, but I think the figurehead or the person that props open the door and gives license to people to do very unpopular things, I think happens because he props open that door.
Yeah.
Right? He gets in there. It's populist now that we're going to do things that we said we were going to do, and I think it's more likely to happen than any other candidate.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so how do you see that looking? Let's just say, first off, you have Elon Musk and the promise that he's going to make government more efficient. He went into Twitter. He fired 80% of the people. He still had Twitter operate with the remaining 20%. Huge efficiency. So in government, if he walks up to Health and Human Services and he's like, I'm going to make that more efficient, 2 things are going to happen. One, he's going to be the most unpopular person on the planet. So we got to protect and preserve his life at all costs. There's going to be a lot of people that are dependent on those dollars that are inefficiently spinning through that agency.
Oh, he's going to get branded as someone who's losing jobs, cutting jobs. Unemployment rate goes up under them.
For sure. So he's going to have a very unpopular job to do. Inefficient. Every one of those Twitter people that he fired probably felt the same way.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I wasn't necessary, and yes, I was getting a paycheck. And Twitter actually had a bottom line where they didn't have an infinite supply of money to be able to dole out to employees that weren't cutting, and they were losing money every year. The government has an infinite supply of money, so they can continue paying government workers even if they don't do anything forever, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one deal, is making these inefficient. I give him probably about a 60% chance of being successful. I think it's not going to be an 80% deal, but if he can make any inroads into combining different agencies and reducing the number of personnel that are dedicated to it, you get a better end product. We hear about these, they give $40 billion to set up internet. And when at the end of the day, when you look to see how the money was spent and what the public got for their $40 billion or whatever it ended up being, they got nothing for it, right? So you need an efficiency person to study that and find out what went wrong. What in the public sector would have happened, or the private sector would have happened, that the public sector screwed around with and messed up so badly.
Yeah.
And instead of it just being he gets to fire as the CEO of the efficiencies are, that it ends up being results-based, where you look at the next thing that happens, you track the dollars that went into it, and you measure the results based on the dollars that were spent. And then if you're not getting a good product at the end of the day, you have to get rid of the people who didn't do a good job.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But the most exciting part is what RFK is going to do.
Yeah.
It's most exciting because breaking up the strongholds of how ingrained agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and all the other agencies that he's going to be gunning for. They, I feel, have even more power than the government bureaucracies because there's so much private money that flows through government where private ends and public begins is probably a really hard line of demarcation, right? But if he can be successful, I give him about a 30% chance of being successful in that department because of how many interests and how much power and how much money that they have in that. It's going to take, again, keep this guy alive, right?
Yeah. And what do you say, just out of curiosity, to the people that want to throw this at him? Oh, he wants to be against pharmaceuticals and all healthy and natural, but he takes HGH. Like, he uses supplements. Obviously, a man of his age is not going to be that ripped naturally. What do you say when people try to use that as an argument about, or maybe try to paint him in like a hypocritical light?
Well, it's not a binary thing, and that's the sophisticated thinkers versus the simpletons. It's the same thing with like abortion. Like abortion, right? The 90% is what we're talking about, and then you throw out rape and incest, right? So if we can solve the 90%, by the time we get down to the 10%, now we've got something to talk about. But you don't take the exception and challenge the rule, right?
Right.
And so if we have too much dependence on pharmaceuticals and we're putting poisons in our food, right? Are we talking really about the people who need a cancer drug? No, we're talking about the pharmaceuticals that people are taking that don't have any effects and aren't doing anything. It's a big waste of money, and it's doctors prescribing because of the stipends they get from selling the drugs. There's their 90%.
Yeah.
So it's not hypocritical. This is not like it's a religion where it's blasphemy that if you say, I want to buy less of something, and if you end up buying a little bit of it, you're a hypocrite.
Oh, yeah. Just like they always want to say, if you don't want a certain vaccine, well, you're anti-vax. There's a lot of different vaccines you can get. And he has even said he's been vaccinated. His kids have been vaccinated for other things. He just didn't want this one. And now you're anti-vax. Again, why can't you just say, we need to look at these things, we need to talk about what's going into these things, and then choose, not an all or nothing kind of mindset.
Exactly. And that's why I tagged this in with the conspiracy theories, because the open-mindedness is we're dealing with margins. We're not dealing with the thing as a whole. If you can make something better, even if it's a 2% better on it, then you've improved it, right? And so it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. If I can't, like making a car payment. You make a car payment, and if you make an extra one, you didn't pay the whole thing off, but you made it better.
Yeah.
It's still not paid off, but it's made a little bit better. And I feel like if we can make it more open-minded, the public saying that, if you take one pill that you cure cancer versus you change your lifestyle and cure cancer, right?
Yeah.
Then it's a lot of smaller decisions that didn't incorporate into one magic pill.
Yeah.
We gravitate towards that because everybody wants the shortcut, the hack.
Quick fix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And none of the problems we're hitting none of them are quick fixes. It requires someone who has patience and can see through the math, right? Instead of, and can obviously take the criticism from people who say, I followed it, it didn't work out, but let's do it again.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of criticisms. They're so quick to point out something that went south because of you trying to change something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If it makes their life in any way harder or inconvenient, or you're taking something away that they have become addicted to or really want, then they're just going to tear apart any flaw, any little thing that they can say is, oh, see, it must not work now.
And that's why those people should never be around power. They should never. I want to almost be more restrictive on how we offer power to people and tie it more to the ability to solve problems and to think through things. The more intelligence you have, the closer you should be to power. The dumber you are, the further away from any of those levers you should be.
I've heard Elon Musk does intelligence tests on anybody who applies to work for him.
Smart thing.
Yeah.
Very smart thing.
And usually when you're applying for a job, you're talking about the product or the industry or whatever. And supposedly it has nothing to do with what you're going to be doing here in the factory. He wants to know how you think before he hires you.
Yeah. And so if we can alienate the dumb people instead of making them popular and paying attention to them, right, then we've got a good start.
Oh my God. That's the epitome of American, what we do. We make the dumb people popular.
Yes,
we see
do.
this on a daily basis. What is the dumbest thing that can go viral or gain popularity and make money? And it's just like, Oh my
But we've done this
God.
to ourselves. Like
Yes.
we really have. We thought it would be very inclusive to have dumb people given the same opportunities that everybody else has, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they started making decisions, and we're like, oh shit! Like we let my 4-year-old drive,
Oh,
and that
gosh.
went south. How did that happen?
Yeah, we put someone like that in power because it was like funny at first or something, and now it's like, oh, now look at the power we've given them because we're so stupid.
Because you remember, okay, so going back through the people you went to high school with, all right?
Yeah.
Think about some of the ones who were really dumb, like not smart, and the ones that like, that person, that's a smart person. Well, think about now, after high school's done, all those people went out and got jobs where they're put in
Yeah.
positions of authority and they can make decisions. There's going to be a couple of them that you hope that they are on an assembly line or doing something that does not require their ability to critically think, right?
Yeah.
But think some of those became politicians and are now making decisions on behalf of other people. And we don't have metrics to say how good you are at making decisions. We actually reward politicians and people of power making poor decisions.
'Cause you know what's interesting too is you could almost look at though the people that were considered dumb and the people that were considered smart, personality wise, where that got them. You know, it was almost like the ones who didn't make good decisions, who might have done idiotic things, were almost more liked, well liked
For sure.
than the smart ones. And it's at what point does personality and your ability to be likable actually get you farther than just your intelligence? I feel like I've seen lots of examples of that where it's like you were pretty intelligent, but you weren't a great communicator. You were socially awkward. You weren't super likable. And so you didn't go far.
Went nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? And the people who are good at presenting but terrible at everything else went really far.
Yeah.
And that's pointing out the phenomenon. Like, you know, human beings are supposed to evolve in a certain direction, and we expect that it basically goes on your chart where we become more sophisticated and more able. So more sophisticated and more able. But at some point it reversed, right?
Yeah.
And nobody really noticed that we were doing the opposite. Like, and this is a little crass, a little bit dark, but evolution requires death in order for a species to evolve upward. Like we take, we take attributes that make things die, and it doesn't reproduce, and then you have a stronger civilization by eliminating the things that make the species progress. And we don't like death, and we don't like to see innocent people die, especially people like if someone's on a hospital bed, our empathy comes out and we want to rescue the person.
Yeah.
But we don't allow things to die in society that really should.
Yeah.
Right? And if they create more generations of that weakness, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to breed that weakness further and further down in genetics, right?
Yes. Oh, I swore I would never bring this person up again, but just when I thought it was dying, I saw a news article that said the Haktua girl just made her first $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? The things that money like that could go to. And that's for what? For what? Because we're dumb.
Really dumb. So what happens then when I said a 50-50 split between smart and dumb? What happens when we get into the 5% smart and 95% dumb? What if we become that idiocracy that we suggest we're on the, sort of like the
Path to.
Yeah, for sure. Right? What happens? Then we can't
we're gonna die
solve the
off.
simplest problems.
Yeah.
So there has to be a smart people rule the world. Dumb people need to just stay out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Don't even breed. Just stay out of the way.
Don't even breathe.
Don't make more dumb people. Like we really.
Yeah, gosh.
But maybe that's a good, the product of VR, putting dumb people in virtual reality where they're not technically involved with everybody else, and they can be occupied in a virtual world where they can't do damage to the world around them, right? That might be, a good use for the dumb people.
Oh no, if it's based on technical ability, I am so screwed.
I don't think it would be technical ability. I think being able to see the evidence of a problem. Like let's just say you're wrong, right?
Yeah.
Good problem solving skills doesn't mean that every decision you make is right. It means that when you made a decision and it didn't quite pan out the way you wanted, you admit that it was gone and you pivot to a different direction. That's good problem solving. If culture doesn't allow you to make a mistake and you're never allowed to pivot and you have to follow the ship down, right? Even when you were wrong, that's a total lack of intelligence.
What about the difference though between intelligence and personality disorders? Like, we talk about sort of being able to like look at yourself and see, okay, I didn't have all the information when I made this decision. I've been educated on it. I need to go ahead and say I was wrong and move forward. And we would say, a smart smart person has the ability to do that. A dumb person would not. What if it's just something like a narcissistic person or a sociopath or things of that nature where actually can, in some instances, be considered intelligent, but this disorder makes it so they can't see things?
Well, that's sort of like marketing. Okay, so the intelligence is the way that you would process the information, come up with your metrics, put it into formulas, solve equations, like problem solving. Your marketing, like if you had a good product that tasted really good and it was nutritionally sound, but your marketing was terrible, right? Then it goes nowhere. So there is a lot of pay attention to me conditioning that happens in our culture. Like everybody wants to be the center of attention. They think they have the most intelligent thing to say, and they're basically marketing themselves to other intelligent people, right? Such as our Hawk Tuah girl. And so it seems like it's good presentation, but you only were palatable to the other dumb people in there. But if you take that away and everyone silences the dumb people, then the smart people actually have some oxygen to breathe and they can start saying smart things, right?
Yeah.
And that's where that dividing line is. How do you get the dumbness out of culture? And I would agree that you probably don't. This thing capsizes. It its own weight is going to crush it eventually. And you just got to sit back and say, all right, let the dumb people destroy everything that they're governing. They're never going to admit that they were completely wrong. Vaccines totally work, and let it just lose all credibility, make it be the butt of jokes, and then what evolves out of that, out of the ashes, the phoenix of intelligence comes out. I hope we can stave it off and not have to have disaster, but I think that's just the natural tendency of what's going to happen.
This still sort of feels like we're describing this Republican Party today. This whole got some smart people behind it, got some good ideas behind it. There's some intelligence brewing, but look at the face of their marketing. Look at how the message is coming out, and that's where people are like, ugh.
But if the marketing, if you're watching the football game and you see a pizza come on TV and the marketing appealed to you and you buy the pizza, right? And somebody else didn't even pay attention to the marketing. They looked up the data on pizza and the ingredients and who it came from and who owns the company, right? You have two choices. Yeah. Whether or not marketing appeals to you, right? Yeah. Is your choice in how you make decisions. And if marketing's appealing, then you get Hawk Tuah girl. If marketing is not appealing and the data is more important to you, then you get a completely different product. So I would argue that marketing is more effective but not as important, and intelligence is more effective but it's not as important.
People just need the information. They don't need it marketed to them in a certain way, just delivered to them.
That its effectiveness, and like I said, the more dumb people you have, the more unintelligence is effective. And then when properly weighed, 10,000 people bought a cheeseburger and one person bought a salad wrap. What's more effective? The marketing on the cheeseburger. And we're like, at the end of the day, it might not have been any ounce of intelligence in it, but the evidence says that's what effective, and that's what more companies will sell, more burgers than salad wraps, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.